Neighborhood Development Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Narayan.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Here.
Chairwoman Hubbard.
Present.
5 present, you have quorum.
So at this time, I'd like to bring the minutes from the December the 10th meeting before us to review. Having reviewed the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from the December 10th
I
meeting.
move that we adopt the minutes from our previous meeting.
Second.
So moved and second, the minutes from the December 10th meeting have, oh, we had to call the roll, I'm sorry. I'm moving fast, I'm trying to get us out of here. Madam Chairman, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Chairwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
5 aye votes.
So the minutes from the December 10th meeting have been adopted. At this time, I believe we have some bills that we have heard before, but we did not take a vote on, so we would like to bring some of those bills forward. And of course, I'll go in order of seniority with that. So at this time, we'll hear Board Bill 118, Alderman Roddy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill number 118 is for one of our historic schools that has been vacant for, gosh, as long as I can remember, probably several decades. It was the Rock Springs School, and it has been in very, very sad and deplorable condition for decades. You can actually see it from Highway 40. It is up for potential redevelopment now. The acquisition cost is $1.8 million. Construction cost is $4.9 million. It's going to be used for office space, and they're requesting 10 years of 90% tax abatement for it.
Okay, at this time, I'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Cone.
Yeah, so Alderman, you and I have had conversations in the past, and you've told me on quite a few occasions that you're no longer providing tax abatement for projects such as this. So I'm just curious.
I'm not sure where you got, we are not providing tax abatement for small scale infill residential housing in Forest Park Southeast, and frankly, almost any part of the ward as a result of the map. This is not a small-scale residential. This is an office project that will end up employing, have employees there, and so I don't ever recall saying that I didn't support tax abatement for commercial projects.
And, okay. So you are supporting tax abatement for large-scale projects in your ward?
In accordance with the resolution that we passed, and this went through all the appropriate analysis, it came out as a 5-star recommendation. It's over $1 million, and I think it's in conformity of the resolution that we passed, which I intend to support.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
Just quickly, I know that I've dealt with one of these school building projects, and I know it's always hard to get a developer in there and to want to do something with it. So I'll be supportive of this, and I wish you all the best on this. Thank you.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. I would just like to commend you on your efforts. I'm currently doing a school building in my ward, Webster School, and these schools sit vacant a long time, so it's good when you can get people that are willing to invest and do the work, and with the possibility of a lot of our schools closing, I will anticipate that we'll probably see a lot of this in the future. I hope that we do anyway, so those buildings won't sit there vacant. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 118.
So moved.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Need a second.
Second. Oh, okay, second. Thank you.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Chairwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
1 present and 4 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
You're welcome. Board Bill 118 is out with a do pass recommendation. At this time, we'll hear Board Bill 161.
161?
Alderman Roddy.
162 is what I was...
You have a 161 and a 162? It's a Chapter 99 blighting study for West Pine Boulevard. Yep, you do.
Where's Matt at?
It was in my packet, not unless it was packaged together.
161 is here.
Yeah, it's here.
Here's 161. Do you need?
Chapter 99.
Project's no longer going through.
Oh, okay. That explains it. 162?
Board Bill 162.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, Madam Chairwoman, and members of the committee, this board bill's gotten a little attention in social media, and I think it's a mistake. It's there's a lot of misstatements about what this board bill's all about. It's actually a large development. There's a map there, and I think it's kind of important for folks to take a look at that map. It's a little hard to see there, but this would be at Vandeventer near 44. And so it would be, let's see if that's, that would be kind of northeast, I guess, of Vandeventer and 44 by a little bit. So it's kind of hard to see on the map there, but as you see the hashed area, that backs up to some railroad tracks, and then McCree is the kind of southern street, and Vandeventer is on the east. And then it really doesn't show up on this map very well, but across from McCree is Highway 44, and along Highway 44 is the St. Louis City Water property, so which is not part of this development. But if you can recall what that looks like, the elevation from Highway 44 looking down, you have the city's water department over there is a very visible site near an intersection with good access, and that will probably at some point represent a real development opportunity for the city. This is actually across McCree from it, and McCree is the kind of a tired street, older industrial, and these buildings have been vacant and full of graffiti for some time. There's environmental problems. And what's proposed here is a very unique dog park, yes, but it's something very unusual relative to the city. And then it represents an opportunity to do some other office and other commercial uses as well. The developer is here. Nicole, did you want to come up and kind of go through the project and kind of share with them what all's involved in this? I guess the dog park's getting all the attention, but there's actually much more to it than just that.
Morning. I'm Nicole Blumner. I'm with Green Street, St. Louis, City of St. Louis resident. And I have some brief slides here for you, so I have a copy for everybody if you would want to take a look at them. So we actually have 2 properties that we're applying for tax abatement here. And if you look at page 2 of our presentation, you can see we have different colors for the 2 properties. 4565 McCree and 4591 McCree. 4565 is approximately 4-acre site. 4591 is about 6 acres, so it's about 10 acres total in the project that we are working to develop. Page 3, you can see our site plan. The first project that we'll be developing is the one that Alderman Roddy referenced that has the Barquet Dog Park in the back half of that building. The backyard of the building will be actually where the outdoor space for that dog park. Then the front of the building is available. We're working on leasing that space. And then we have parking that we'll also be developing to serve both sites in our first phase of the development. If you look to page 4, you can see some of the existing conditions here. These buildings were developed in the 1940s, industrial uses that became obsolete over time. Cardinal was the last tenant who was in 4565. They relocated to Overland in 2019, and 4591 has been vacant for 10 years or more, and that one is a real eyesore at this point and really needs either to be completely rehabbed or torn down. We'll also be upgrading the utilities that serve these buildings, as well as sidewalks, driveways, and so forth, and really just completely freshen this area. So on slide 5, you can see our image for 4565 McCree. It's approximately $15 million in total development costs. We hope to add some mezzanine space into the front of the building and bring it up to about 57,000 square feet of total. About half of that is the Barquet Dog Park and Restaurant, which is currently in Kansas City and hoping to expand to St. Louis. And then the front would be for creative office users. There's a lack of space in the Grove for these types of users, so we anticipate that people will want to locate, and we've got some strong interest and leads in that space. Just a little bit more room, more visibility for companies. A company in the Grove right now that's potentially interested in growing into this space. So a total of up to 150 employment positions. On page 6, you can see our rendering of the building. Obviously, it's a huge transformation and really just brings a new image to this area that's really kind of a dusty, obsolete corner of the city at the moment. And then on page 7, you'll see an image looking at for 4591. We may do a renovation of that building. We're trying to figure out sort of cost benefit of that at this time. It possibly could be a new facility. We had a group, a national group that does a kind of a destination entertainment that was interested, so that image is what you see there, but really at this point, we don't know, but we do anticipate a good level of employment there and a complementary use. And really we see this area as being able to serve and provide amenities to people who live in the Grove. We're building a lot of new units in that community, and both the dog park and whatever goes next door will also provide amenities to those residents. So that's a little bit of our project. On the back page, you see our sources and uses, which is what had been presented in the fiscal analysis, and that's kind of the summary of these two sites.
Nicole, could you go into, there's this, I think, misnomer about the dog park, like it's just a little dog park. This is actually a bona fide business. If you go through and kind of, that has we anticipate a market area of 20 or 30 miles that we think that they believe people will be coming to that. So.
Sure, that's a good point. So in Kansas City, they draw people from throughout the region. They draw people who are coming across the country who want to stop and give their dogs a place to run and play. It's membership based, so you can either buy a day pass or a yearly pass. And if it's a yearly pass, then you have somewhere you can bring your dog every day. It opens in the morning, and they have coffee, breakfast, full service restaurant. They have lunch, they have dinner. They do a lot of events. They do adoption events every week for pets. They do entertainment and have a lot of different groups that come there. They can do private parties. The idea is it creates kind of one of those third places where people can come and gather. And if you're in an apartment or have a small yard, you know that you want to have space for your dog to really be able to run. So they'll have 2 acres. They have folks who actually monitor the dogs, so if there's issues, they can deal with that. They screen the dogs, for health, and before they let any one of them in. So it's well curated. Kansas City's been very successful. They've been open for about a year and a half, and they've had 150,000 dogs visitors and 200,000 people visitors. And you don't have to have a dog to go there. Anybody can go, just get a coffee, lunch, whatever it is, so.
What kind of sales volume are you projecting?
Oh, they're projecting, it's several $1 million a year in sales.
Are you done with testimony in regarding Alderman?
I believe it went through the same financial analysis that,
Okay.
other large projects have, and I believe I lost my cheat sheet here. I believe that kind of 5-star rating.
So at this time, we'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Cone?
What is, on the sources of funds here, it says sponsor equity. What is sponsor equity?
That's just developer equity into the project. I think that's correct, yeah.
So, okay. So this has a SID and a TDD, or one or the other? The source of funds here has both listed?
Yeah, it's just a SID. That's just the way that line item is categorized.
Okay. There is no plan for a TDD?
And you can confirm that, no.
Okay. Has the SID already happened? Is that, Alderman Roddy, that would go through your committee?
Would have gone through Ways and Means.
Or, okay,
I don't know.
I don't believe it has.
okay. Have the new market tax credits been awarded for the project yet?
They have.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay. So, maybe I'm missing this. So where's the value of the tax abatement? I don't,
We've got we've separated this into two projects because we're suggesting different tax abatement schedules. So on the Barquet,
which is the 50%?
Yeah, the 50% for 10 years. The present value of the incentive is 1.3 million, and on the other, on the 4591, it's 2.2 million. So about 8% of the Barquet project and 15% of the other commercial project.
And what is the average that we're using in terms of tax abatement on these large-scale projects? How much, in terms of, like, tax abatement is essentially creating equity for the developer for these projects, right?
Well,
So the savings or cost avoidance on them,
I mean, it's creating, I mean, it's not capitalized like a CID might. I mean, it's taken off their net operating income, so it allows for higher debt or, you know, for them to do that. But what do you mean, what's the average?
so in terms of the amount that developers are saving off of the tax incentives, the tax abatement that would be offered versus the cost of the project?
Well, that's the 15% off of the one and the 8% off the two of project
I
costs.
believe what the Alderman's asking relates to the report that I've been
Yeah.
emailing back and forth to you. He's asking what the average is, and I think the answer would be we don't really know that yet, so we're working on trying to.
That's in that report?
We're working on trying to go ahead. Last year was probably the first year that we've done a comprehensive report. We think we're on the verge of having a comprehensive report done that will show the value of the tax abatement relative to the development costs for every project in the city by ward and so forth. Now, it's still, we're going back and forth about some of the data we should capture. We're not going to get all of it that we would like to have, but it's a fairly significant improvement over what we've seen historically, and we'll hopefully make that available for
Okay. I continue to struggle with the amount of incentives that are being utilized in our central corridor. Especially in an area, I mean, Alderman, your ward has seen hundreds of millions of dollars of reinvestment, and actually some would tout billions of dollars of investment over the last 10 to 20 years. It's jarring to me sometimes that we're still utilizing incentives in an area that continues to see that level of investment, where, you know, in areas on the periphery, you know, Southeast City, North City, even the near north side, we still struggle to see any level of development take place. So you know, I mean, and it's not just this project, it's, you know, we had the Shodo and Jefferson, the Lafayette Square project that was before us last year. That was 20 years of tax abatement that was being offered. You know, anything along this like Shodo corridor, I mean, it's just been going gangbusters lately, and we continue to offer incentives for an area that continues to see active investment. Not to mention, we have tens of millions of dollars in public money that's going to go in through, you know, GRG with the development of the Shodo Greenway. And so I'm at a loss as to why we continue to offer incentives of this size along an area that continues to see this level of investment.
I mean, that's why we perform the model on these projects.
Yeah, but the model isn't really geared.
Need and a demonstrated benefit.
The model, though, is geared towards how much the city is going to be able to recoup off of its investment, you know, based off of the incentive. That's the model.
Yeah.
Okay, so the model doesn't gauge the need for investment. It gauges what the city is going to be able to recoup in terms of its, essentially its cost of giving away the tax incentive.
And we also analyze the, you know, the need to a specific project to incent it to get the investment needed to make that project happen. In a lot of these projects, without that incentive, they could not get either the equity or the debt investment from debt sources to make the project work. So that's what we look at.
If I could,
Yeah.
obviously we disagree somewhat on this, although I certainly understand some frustration. I think there's several things that are overlooked. One is that much of the area that's seeing reinvestment in the Central Corridor has seen perhaps the most disinvestment in the St. Louis region. We're talking about older industrial areas that frequently have environmental contamination. And, you know, think of the foundry. It's a 12-acre site. That's a foundry. It's environmentally contaminated. This site, I believe, has environmental problems with it. There used to be hundreds of people, and the city used to make millions of dollars in earnings tax off of those areas, and they just stopped. You know, that school that we just did, that's been vacant for 20 or 30 years. The amount of disinvestment that's occurred in the Central Corridor over the last 50 or 60 years has just been, you know, devastating. You know, that's certainly an element of it. The other element of it
I mean,
is...
but all due respect, Alderman, the disinvestment in North St. Louis has been far more devastating. And I would also argue in Southeast City, we have the same industrial corridors down on the south side that run along the railroad track. They have a higher rate of vacancy. They don't have nearly the value that these in the Central Corridor do. You know, we have school buildings all over the city, you know, outside of the Central Corridor that have been vacant for 30, 40 years. You know, Cleveland High School has almost been vacant for 20 years at this point in time. You know, I mean,
So
it's
as
about
somebody who's
12
been
years.
doing this for 30 years, Alderman, I will tell you that 5 years ago, things like Manchester was still largely vacant. And if you go ahead and begin taking a look at, as an example, beyond just the residential, you have the whole idea of employment. And many of these projects are designed to create employment opportunities in addition to housing. And, you know, the Central Corridor, the number of jobs that are in the Central Corridor you know, there's 75% of the city's jobs are in the central corridor. In the 17th ward alone, there's probably 25 or 30% of the jobs. So much of this development and investment that is occurring in the central corridor is being done so that people can actually have jobs there. The medical center, for example, the billions of dollars that are occurring at the medical center of investment, that doesn't get tax abatement. It's not. Those are tax-exempt organizations that are building those large buildings, and 20 or 30% of the people that work there live in the city, and many of them probably live in your ward. And so when we go ahead and do these things, you know, the faster that, you know, this project gets done, the faster the next project next to it gets done. And we started out in the Central West End 30 years ago. We had a few blocks that were still in halfway decent shape, and then a few blocks around them got done, and then Cortex got done, and then Forest Park Southeast got done, and then Botanical Heights got done. And now, you know, we're taking a look at things east of us, and things that are along Grand Avenue that border the 19th Ward and in the Gate District are being done because these projects that have happened in the 17th, you know, that in the western part of the ward got done, and now it's spreading east, and you're seeing development opportunities in the 19th Ward that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. You know, what's going to happen down along Grand Avenue in their Shoto down there, that's certainly, part of that's in the 17th Ward, but a lot of that's going to be in the 19th Ward. And you go into the Gate District, and what's happening down there, that would have never happened without the new hospital being built and some of the other things that have happened over there. It's like a quilt. You know, we've done, you know, you do one square of the quilt, and then the next square of the quilt. I believe there's things going on in the 18th Ward today that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the 17th Ward. I think there's some of the things that have happened in the ward. I think some of the things that are going on in the 26th Ward is a reflection of what happened in the 28th Ward. I think some of the things that are happening in the 5th Ward are a reflection of what's happened in the 7th Ward.
That's correct.
You know, I mean, it's, you know, the sooner that we get this project done, the sooner we run out of space, and the sooner that hopefully we get developers interested. I certainly empathize with your concerns in your area. I mean, I was there before. There was a time when I couldn't give enough money away to have somebody do something in Botanical Heights.
But the challenge that I also have, though, Alderman, is that when we've had qualified developers that have come before SLDC, they have been told no for the exact same level of tax incentives that we've been offering in the Central Corridor for years, you know, and that's what becomes even more frustrating, whether it's a Chapter 353 or, you know, a 20-year tax abatement for, you know, a large-scale project. You know, these are all things that I have seen happen down here, you know, during my 11 years of, you know, tenure in service down here. And so, you know, it's exceptionally frustrating. I hear you, you know, and it's great to see this development happening. And certainly when it comes time for, you know, projects and we need to remain competitive with places, unfortunately, within our region, like Clayton or, you know, U City, Richmond Heights, Westport, you know, I understand that's a kind of internal household struggle that we have as a region, you know, but we continue to have projects that I don't know if they necessarily address the but for, you know, if this does not happen, you know, will this project continue? You know, I understand that there's financing that's predicated on, you know, the terms of the incentive, but is financing still possible without the incentive? You know, there's still several million in new market tax credits that's been awarded to the project. You know, this is, I really feel like we can do better in terms of how we're evaluating providing these incentives. You know, I understand that you work from your nodes of strength, like totally understand that and can appreciate it. But at some point in time, we also have to pause and say, you know, where do we draw a line and continue to push investment further out of that Central Corridor area? And I don't think we're going to solve that, dilemma or question here today. But I really, Green Street has obviously been a tremendous partner in the city and has done very quality work all over. Certainly appreciate them as a partner in developing our city. But I really struggle, with projects like this and how we're incentivizing them.
If I could, not to be argumentative, but to hopefully be cooperative, we did spend a couple years trying to better understand this. I think we have quantified it in ways that have never happened before, and it's still new. I think we're learning. Hopefully we'll improve. Part of the discussion, which my intent to directly responding to you is that at the HUD's meeting tomorrow, we are having Rodney Krems in. Feel free to check your calendar letter, and he's going to explain to us what St. Louis Economic Development Partnership does, and as a specific topic, I'll be glad to share my emails. I'm going to ask him what St. Louis Economic Partnership can do to go ahead and start mediating some of this intra-regional competition for the use of incentives. And in my selfish view of the world, I think that municipalities ought to be limited to the use of the incentives based on the percent of their population below the median income for the region, as opposed to blight. Therefore, we could avoid the situation where St. Louis City is competing with places like Clayton or Chesterfield, which does not have their pro rata share of lower income residents, and therefore don't have to provide the additional services. So I would welcome members of the committee to join us, of this committee, to feel free to join us and sit in on that discussion tomorrow. But that's what I think would be the appropriate entity to begin facilitating a regional discussion on this. So, it's a concern. I think it's a valid concern, and as chairman of the HUD's committee, I'm trying to do what I can to do. Obviously, we can't go into municipalities in St. Louis County and tell them what to do, but kind of an interesting situation has developed. Maryland Heights and the county have kind of gone separate ways on the use of TIF for a project out there, and that might be an indication that the county government is interested in perhaps becoming a little bit more assertive. So we're going to hopefully begin broaching that subject tomorrow with the executive director of the St. Louis Economic Partnership.
Thank you, Alderman Roddy. Alderwoman Murphy.
Well, and I have a Parks Committee that I have to chair across the hallway, so unfortunately I'm going to have to step out because we have a quorum over there. But, I respect Rodney Krem and the work that he's been doing, and, certainly appreciate, any efforts to continue moving in the right direction on that front. So, thank you, Alderman.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Yes, I appreciate, Alderman Roddy, what you said about that. It's hard to compete with Clayton and Ladue and Chesterfield, and we're always faced with that. Just as a point, how long were each one of these properties vacant? Do we know offhand? Did I miss that? Like the Barcade?
Sure. So in the case of 4565, that was at the end of last year.
Okay.
Okay.
And what was in there before?
Cardinal Building Supply. So
Cardinal Building
they provided siding, gutters,
Okay. And
small workforce that was there. And then the other building, at least 10 years, I don't have the exact date.
okay, no, thank you, that's all.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I see here that Phase 1, you anticipate 150 jobs. Phase 2, about 300 jobs. What kind of jobs are we talking about?
So Phase 1, it's a range of jobs. So Barquet, it's a hospitality venue, so it's restaurant people. There's some management within that. That's about 23,000, so it's about half of the building. The rest of it, where we have interest from office tenants, so those would be mid to high level professional positions. In Phase 2, it's a little harder to say because, while I mentioned we had that interest from the entertainment group, we don't have anything fixed there. So it could really range. If we can get some more traction on office users, that would be ideal. But I think, we don't really know yet.
So the hope would be to have office space as opposed to another hospitality space?
I think we're prepared for whatever comes our way so that we can just take advantage of whoever is interested, and we would love to have office.
Sure. And then the dog park itself, I'm looking at just kind of the site map. Is that inside and outside, outside exclusively?
It's correct. It's inside and outside, so you'll come in, there will be a check-in area, then you can go through to either an indoor play area or an outdoor one, and then the restaurant is separated. We've had pretty extensive conversations with the health department to make sure that there's no eating where there are pets that are off-leash and that everything will work, from a health standpoint. But yeah, the idea is that unlike in Kansas City, you really have something that no matter the weather, people can come there and, so it will be a year-round operation.
Perfect. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any question.
Okay. So I would just like to add to some of what my colleague said, Alderman Cone. We, for so long now, we have expressed our discontent with so much happening in the central corridor and not in other parts of the city. But we do, in fact, know that, that's an economic engine of the city as well as downtown, and it has brought us a lot of jobs. But I get it, as an alderperson, when you have development come to your ward, it's like in your ward, you're not trying to solve the city's issues. You're just happy to have the development. So I feel that the responsibility lies upon SLDC and the city to go above and beyond to start, packaging these deals together where they will be more likely to want to build in North St. Louis opposed to the central corridor where they're running out of space and they're constantly building up, which is more expensive because they don't want to go across a street or two or go across Delmore. So I'm happy that we are continuing those conversations. I know that in the last couple of years, we have done a big look at incentives and how we allocate incentives, but I think it's just important for us to put, not necessarily the blame, but put it where it needs to be, and that's on our development arm of the city who, to me, has not gone above and beyond to try to rebuild North St. Louis. And I think the caucus and many members of the board have expressed our discontent with that process because we definitely need to see growth. I mean, you have blocks and blocks and blocks of vacant property, and I understand the business part of it too. If you're looking at your bottom line and how you're gonna, what the return on your investment is gonna be, you may not necessarily want to go, build in North St. Louis. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to let developers know that we're open for business in North St. Louis. And sometimes people are often beat up about giving incentives, but I'll give them whatever they want to create growth and jobs in my community. So I think that this is definitely not the meeting to hash all of that out, but I think that going forward, we need to have some serious conversations about how we move forward as a city and how we create, just a better place. Because if you look at these maps, it's like one whole side of the city has more LRA property, and it's vacant, and it's ridiculous that it looks like that, and that didn't happen overnight, so we probably won't be able to change it overnight. But I think that we definitely need to do something, and I know you get beat up sometimes, Alderman Roddy, and I'll probably be getting beat up like you in the future because I got a lot of good stuff happening in my ward too. It's long overdue, but I commend your efforts because you've been very engaged in the development in your ward, but I do feel the concerns of all of us at the Board of Aldermen, when we talk about incentives in certain parts of the city. So with that being said, that's all my comments. I'll entertain a motion for passage of Board Bill 162.
I move we pass, I'm sorry, go ahead. I move we pass Board Bill
162.
162, I would do pass recommendation.
Second. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Chairwoman Hubbard.
Oh, aye. I was trying to remember. Like, okay, Board Bill 162 is out with a do pass recommendation. At this time, we'll hear Board Bill 123, Alderman Vollmer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Before us is Board Bill 123. Sharita, here's some handouts. Thank you. For some of you, we've seen this before. It's two properties, 5476 Dempsey and 5027 Daggett, both being done by Pagano Land Development. These are tear downs of existing old houses and new single-family homes being built. Acquisition cost of one is $83,000, the other is $130,000. There's a construction cost misnomer there. That's actually the sale price of $45,000. The construction cost is $332,000. Zach and I caught that little misprint. The Daggett Avenue house is the one that is across, next to the new development going in, the 12-acre site, with down around, I guess it's always easier on the hill to let you know, that's down around Ragazzi's restaurant. The Dempsey Avenue one is about a block down from Antonino's restaurant. We can discuss either one separately, but they were both tear downs of very old, dilapidated houses and new construction going up. The Daggett house will be a new 2,520 total square foot house with a garage, 2-bedroom, 2.5 baths. The other one is 1,896 square feet, 2-car garage, 1.5 story, 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths, where we typically had 3 rooms, a bathroom that was added in 1939 before they had no plumbing in the hill. So these are both brand new homes. The abatement is 5 years. The map calls for 5 years at 50%. The board bill allows 5 years at 40% on the improvements. So it's a very minimal, but the map is there, and these folks and the developers see the map, and we try to work with them. As you see, we've actually knocked it down a little from what the map allowed. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, Alderwoman Murphy.
No, just a comment. I said no one wants to live like our grandparents did.
No. We grew up with 9 people in 4 rooms. Now they have 4 people in 19 rooms. Yes.
I was 7 in a 4-room flat,
Yeah.
so I understand.
Yeah.
I know it sounds wonderful. I like the idea that it's the 5 years at 40% just on the improvements.
Only on improvements, yes.
And, because this brings people into the city, and and that's what we need. I said, I wish I had more of it myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you. Just to keep it quick here, I owe you a bit of an apology on a procedural issue. I voted no on this last time. I'll be voting no on the floor, but my intent was not to kill this in committee. I believe that we should have robust debate here. So I apologize. I miscounted my votes here. So I will be voting to get this out of committee, but I'll continue to feel the way that I feel regarding these single-family developments in my neighborhood and in your neighborhood on the floor.
No worries.
So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any question.
So hearing no other questions, I move that we pass Board Bill 123 out with a do pass recommendation.
Second, previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 123 is out with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you, committee.
So at this time, we'll hear Board Bill 204, Alderwoman Martin.
Good morning, thank you. I just left my sheet over in the Parks, or my packet over in the Parks Committee.
Would you like time to go get it, and we can hear Alderwoman Hubbard's first, or?
I think it's pretty
good?
simple.
Okay.
Thank you, though. This is property purchased by Carondelet Community Betterment Federation, which is my CDA in my ward, or the CDA, not mine, in the 11th Ward. And this is right at Loughborough and 55. This is a house that faces the highway and Loughborough Commons, so when you get off the highway, you'd pass it. They were able to purchase it, totally gut and rehab it, and then they would like to sell it. It's not a particularly what I would have called a desirable property for most people. But because the way CCBF operates, they're able to do this. So I fully support this.
So at this time, we'll entertain questions from the committee. Alderwoman Murphy.
Yes, Alderman Martin, is this a single-family home?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's the one with, it has a for sale sign in the front yard.
Was that all you had? Okay. Alderman Bosley,
No questions.
Alderman Narayan,
No questions.
Alderman Todd.
No question.
Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion for passage of Board Bill 204.
I move that we pass Board Bill 204 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second. Previous row.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 204 is out with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Bill number 209, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill 209 is an abatement bill for 5258 and 5268 Maple. I have some handouts on it. Chris Kaliza and Guy Slay are the developers. I personally went over, put on a hard hat, and went through these properties with them. I'm excited about the work they're doing over there. These properties, one of them has been vacant for over 20 years. The other one has been vacant for almost a decade itself. They had become extreme problem properties right there on the corner. Trap houses, if I can find a better word for them. They were horrible, and they are over there doing an amazing job with the properties. And Alderman Ryan, I did ask your but-for question, and they said but-for, they wouldn't, they believe they wouldn't have been able to do the work they're doing, especially the level of work they're doing to the properties without this abatement. So I ask for your favorable consideration and a due pass recommendation.
At this time, we'll take questions for the committee, from the committee, Alderwoman Murphy.
Yeah, looking at these pictures, you can tell they were beautiful buildings. And
they
so
were.
they're going to, they're being rehabbed, and they will be the same single-family?
Yes.
Whatever. Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions. I'll make a comment, though. Man, these buildings suck. They look really bad, but as we all experience these in the ward, so I know you're excited to see somebody finally put some money into them and do something amazing with them, so good job, good luck.
Thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you. Thank you for asking the developer that question, first off. I think we need to be doing more of that in general. And just a quick comment, having had the opportunity to go with you through your ward, it was great to see the beautiful architecture you have in your ward. You have one of the most beautiful parts of the city, and it's great to see the reinvestment coming in and not looking to tear down
Absolutely.
this beautiful old architecture, but looking to build on it and make that part of the city, hopefully, what it once was, with a thriving part of the city that's full of beautiful buildings. So keep up the good work. This definitely has my support.
Thank you.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any question. I just think those are beautiful buildings.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. I definitely congratulate you on being able to deal with some eyesores in your ward. What was the acquisition cost? Was it, am I reading that right? Was it $1,000, or what was the acquisition cost? Which one? Let's see. On the 5258 Maple, 5268.
Yes, they were previously LRA properties.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that was a very nice deal to get that building for $1,000.
One was, I believe 5268 was subject to fire several years ago.
Oh, okay. Hearing no further questions.
You need to say her name? Or
Pardon?
does she need to
Oh,
say her name?
we know who
Okay.
she is. You work for SLDC.
Everybody know me.
So at this time, I move that we pass Board Bill 209. I would do pass recommendation.
Previous row.
Hearing no objection to previous row, Board Bill 209 is out.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this,
Can I just go get on the record? I'm coming right back.
okay. So at this time, we're down to the members of the committee out here, Board Bill 201, I think Alderwoman Murphy, you'll be handling that for Alderwoman Howard.
Thank you.
Chairman and members of the committee, I said this is a board bill for 3933 Delore. It's in a Chapter 99 redevelopment plan. It's a 7-year tax abatement at 95% assessed value. I have some handouts here for the building. I said they purchased it for $150, and they put in $70,000, and they're going to be asking about $169 for it. It's Delore is an interesting block. There's a lot of different housing on it, and I think this is an effort to keep the street up to, up to par, and to maintain it. So I'll entertain any questions. I say 7 years at 95%.
Okay, Alderman Narayan,
No questions.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any question.
Okay, hearing no questions, I move that we pass Board Bill 201 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Thank you.
Any objection to previous row?
No objection.
Okay, hearing no objection to previous row, Board Bill 201 is out with a due pass recommendation. And so at this time, we'll hear Board Bill 197, Alderwoman Murphy.
Oh, there you go. Just messed up. Here I am. Let's see. Well, I don't know what to do with the pictures. Here, I'm at the wrong desk, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go, it's okay, it's all good.
197.
Okay. Chairman and members of the board, this is a board bill similar. It's in a Chapter 99 redevelopment plan, and it is 3808 Wilmington. And we are asking, and it qualified for 5 years at 50%. Again, I have some handouts for you. It was vacant for a long time. I believe there was a family death, and no one wanted to take responsibility for it. The first picture in the front really doesn't show what bad shape it was. It's too far away. You couldn't even see the front steps. It was vacant for so long, and there was sewer trouble, and since the house was vacant, that went on for quite a while. And that's the backyard. You can get a little better idea. It's on a wonderful block, a corridor block, a central corridor block through the Holly Hills neighborhood, and it's very important to me that we keep that, maintain that block. And this was just beginning to be an eyesore. I got a lot of calls on, and we had to deal with the water department a lot because of the vacancy, and I'm really pleased to be able to see this come back on board. And I don't know if the developer is here. No, I don't think so. But anyway, I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, Alderman Narayan,
No questions.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any question.
And so I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So the acquisition cost was $97,000, and then
Right.
they're going to put another 50 into it, I guess, to
Right.
bring it back? Okay,
And at present now, they intend to rent it.
okay.
But the developer has done other work, and I'm confident that they will, maintain it and, rent to decent people or whatever.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for Board Bill 197.
So moved.
Previous row.
Second. Okay, hearing no objection to previous row, Board Bill 197 is out with a due pass recommendation.
He looks insane.
So, at this time, we'll hear Board Bill 210, Alderman Bosley. And then so we need to put the community substitute before us after that, or how does it work?
Afterwards.
Afterwards, okay, that's what I thought.
Committee sub. Good morning, members of the board, members of the committee. All right, here are the handouts. Thank you. All right, this is for a redevelopment plan, redevelopment right at Jefferson Gamble. If you are familiar with an old club named Spruce, it has switched hands multiple occasions. This building has been empty for, I think, at least 5 years, bare minimum. I remember when I was a teenager, I went there a few times. And then when I became an adult, it was closed. So this is right down the street from the NGA. As you know, that shall be probably hundreds of millions in dollars invested over the next 5 to 10 years. And this will be one of those developments that is no difference. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is a $10 million development, which is pretty interesting. I think that is kind of the biggest investment along that corridor, maybe aside from the NGA, and at least 5 to 10 years. I haven't seen anything along Jefferson come up. We just turn everything down. So the project is in connection with Rise and Doorways. They have offices inside of the Central West End. They also have housing in the 19th Ward. What they do is house HIV patients, and if you'd like them to come up, they can explain more about what it is that they do. So the goal is, though, to put their headquarters right there on Jefferson, and that is what this building is. It'll be a headquarters for Doorways. We'll have apartment buildings on the inside, also some storefront spaces and office spaces. It's for 10 years at 100%, and another 5 years at 50. Altogether, we're looking at about $2.2 million as far as what the tax abatement is worth.
Okay, and so at this time, we'll entertain questions from the committee. Alderwoman Murphy.
No questions, just a comment. I agree, it's so nice to see new construction coming up in some of those areas where all we've been doing is tearing things down. So I say congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, before we get ahead of ourselves, would you all like to come up and just speak on behalf of the bill? I know this is definitely a huge project, and it definitely will be an asset to my ward as well. If you could sign this sheet and tell us who you all are, and then we could, I guess, properly ask questions if we may have.
Good morning, committee. I'm Opal Jones, President and CEO of Doorways, and I have Rick Bonish here with me with Rise Community Development. Yes, so we're very excited to present this to you today. As you know, we're embarking on a brand-new service model for Doorways, which we think will be a national model and replicated across the United States, where we're pairing housing for our most vulnerable citizens with a services home, inclusive of behavioral health, employment, and various housing and supportive services to people living with HIV, but also expanding those services available to the broader community as we reach a full implementation of this project. What you have in front of you is phase one, which is 50 housing units, and our new programmatic and administrative headquarters, which will be moving from the Central West End down to the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, where we already have a campus available to our residents presently. So this is a block away from where we already are in that neighborhood, and we're just excited to expand upon our footprint that's already in that area.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to offer anything, sir?
Thank you very much. My name is Rick Bonish. I'm with Rise Community Development. The only one thing I would like to add to this is that the question of the but-for test comes up a lot in terms of providing incentives and that. And the tax credits that make this project possible are awarded to the state of Missouri, Missouri Housing Development Commission. And that's one of the questions they look for in terms of leveraging a partnership with local jurisdictions to help catalyze projects. So what this incentive does is help gain the approval of the overall financing and support for the project.
Thank you, and I have a quick question, make sure we're handling the business properly. So it looks like the summaries are the same. Can you speak to the committee substitute as well?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what they are. Can I have the committee sub in front of me? I'm sorry. There are 2 changes in the plan. If you go to the plan, which is,
And so are you presenting the committee substitute now? Because if so, we need to bring it.
no, I was
for
just
us.
going, I can, however you want to, I mean, I know we have to bring it up after we pass this out of committee.
Before.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Right, so we discussing it now?
So
So we're housekeeping. I'm still a rookie at this chairman stuff. So you're discussing just the regular 210, right?
Right, and then we
And so,
discuss
and you want to
CS.
talk, so we have to bring the committee substitute before us, and then it would be 210, what, as amended, or committee
Committee
sub?
sub,
Okay,
right, and then we pass it out.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to bring a Board Bill 210 committee substitute.
So
before the
moved.
committee. Okay.
All right, so this board bill,
No objection to previous row. Board Bill 210 committee substitute is before us.
yes, ma'am, thank you. So if you turn to page, the first page of the plan, which is after page 9, and you go to page 2 of the plan, the differences in the committee sub and the actual board bill, pull it up right quick, is just a few lines.
Alderman, do we have the committee sub in front of us?
Yeah, it's clipped. Oh, mine was.
My mistake.
Oh, yeah, she put it in there. Oh, perfect. All right, so if you go to section 2 in proposed zoning, you'll see there's 2 lines in proposed zoning, and for the committee sub, there's 5. It is, if I remember correctly, okay, yeah, go ahead. I know one of them is for sidewalks.
The planning department.
Could you come in front of the mic for us, sir?
The planning department asked for more detail in the redevelopment plan, so that's what led to the committee substitute, and it provides for 3 areas. It wanted detail on land use, the detail on zoning, and detail on circulation. And working with the planning department well, really mainly the planning department and the alderman and the community, there was, since part of the project is to vacate that 1 block of Stoddard, they wanted to preserve pedestrian access from the neighborhood to the west out to Jefferson. So that sidewalk was added. That circulation features in the committee substitute. On the zoning, the planning department wanted to speak to the rezoning request that's in the works at this time also. At the present time, the site is zoned 3 different classes, CG combined and F. And there's a request in with Mary Hartburton right now to rezone the whole site G. And so that is in your committee substitute as well. And the reason for that rezoning more than anything is to provide for a consolidation of the site and then to be able to re-subdivide. And that's not possible to happen with multiple zoning classes. And then the third item is detailing of the land use. And so added information is in your plan describing the mixed-use nature of the project, which will be residential, administrative, office, and retail. Those are the changes.
Perfect. Summed it up so very gracefully and well. Thank you, sir. All right, so that is the project in whole. We ask for your favorable consideration. Of course, you know, this can be something that will, as Alderman Roddy said, spur more development. Generally, if you take up space on this side and somebody see you doing something with it, somebody wants to go next to it. Everybody wants to build where development is already happening. So this can be an amazing project for, I think, the city as a whole.
Right. Okay, so we'll run back through the committee again. Do you have anything, Alderwoman Murphy?
No questions. I love the concept of the residents and the help and all that being there at one time. That's wonderful.
Alderman Narayan.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. So you mentioned that this would be housing for HIV patients. So could you tell me a little bit about how that works?
I'm happy to. We've been providing housing and health care to people living with HIV for 32 years in the city of St. Louis. So What we aim to do here is to provide housing for people who are at their most vulnerable state. There are folks who are homeless or precariously housed, like I'm on your couch and I'm just one step away from homelessness or an argument away from homelessness. And because we know that those individuals need a lot of wraparound services, that's why we paired the idea of having that housing being directly located with our new headquarters, where we can have 24-hour surveillance and access to the residents. We'll have an on-site pantry, which will be staffed in conjunction with our friends at Food Outreach who are already doing this work. We partner with St. Louis University Psychological Services Center to come in and do the behavioral health work for us. We've got employment connection. We've got a memorandum of understanding with them to do the employment piece. So the residents and their family will be living on site, but it is an integrated living environment with all of the other services that Doorways offers.
Okay, so the model is, I guess, the rents would be paid by grant money or something else?
Correct. Doorways has a mix of public and private funding. Like I said, we've been around for 32 years.
Sure.
We have about a $10 million operating budget, so we have existing subsidies that we'll put into making this project feasible. And of course, we're fundraising for new dollars now. That's the great thing about this project. It's very much been public and private. We've got a capital campaign going on where we've raised over $4 million. The community has really come out in support of this project. And then, of course, we were just awarded those low-income housing tax credits, which gave this project life. And I would say that that was on our first try, and that's really been as a result of the city, SLDC, Alderman Bosley, and everybody coming together to make that happen for us.
And then could you tell me a little bit about the jobs that you anticipate going into the office space?
Yeah, so folks like me will be moving from the Central West End down there, as well as our supportive staff right now. So I anticipate that about half of the jobs that Doorways has, we have 76 employees currently, will be moving there, and initially we'll have at least 10 more because we'll be staffing that 24 hours a day. We'll be bringing on behavioral health professionals. So it's a range of roles from high-level executives down to the folks who will be hiring for custodial and maintenance for that site.
And it'll just be the one business operating out of the office space. It won't be numerous.
So Doorways will occupy the main site, and then we have 2 retail locations also, where we're calling retail A and B on there. We've talked to a number of banks who are interested in our corner tenant space, and then it's unclear yet who will occupy the second tenant space.
Okay.
And our idea about that was to address stigma and isolation through this. We wanted to bring as many people onto our campus as possible for non-HIV related reasons. So if I'm there going to get services, you don't know if I'm at the bank, I'm getting services or what. And it helps the community of people we're trying to serve, but it also helps educate the broader public. So there's a lot that we're trying to address with this new model, in addition to providing the care for the residents on site.
Great. Yeah, I think it looks great. I've driven by this plot of land, and I think it would be a lot nicer to see the picture on this side than the picture on this side right now. And it's just kind of icing on the cake that it sounds like not only is it going to provide a useful service for city residents, but also reduce some of the stigma associated with folks that have HIV. So I will certainly be supportive of this, and great job, Alderman.
Alderman Todd.
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. I would like to commend you for building up in your ward. And thank you for Alderman Bowsley.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't have any questions at all. I just have a comment. You know, this space was definitely one that's been near and dear to my heart for a long time. I, like you, Alderman Bosley, got a lot of inebriated memories in that dwelling, and it was so funny to see it transition throughout the years. It was sprues, and it was crazy because the Fifth Ward Alderman always thought that it was actually in the Fifth Ward, but it was actually in the Third. But I actually did my first campaign kickoff when it changed to Lavish briefly, and we just had a lot of stuff going on in the neighborhoods. People had stolen the air conditioner units off and just all kind of stuff. But I commend you on your efforts, and I'm definitely grateful to have it butt up close to my ward, because that whole corridor is about to change. The last development prior to this being underway, we did LaSalle School right there, and you have Car Lane, and then you have these plans for the hospital, and it's just so much is getting ready to change, and like all of the connectors that we've been looking at that will definitely come right past your front door on Jefferson, so that's huge, and with NGA being the anchor, I'm glad to see so much stuff getting ready to happen in the community, and I tell people all the time, I mean, we're open for business in the 3rd and 5th Ward. Look, come develop, and I love that you are thinking of the possibility of having a bank as a tenant, because in that footprint, especially in the 5th Ward, it has the unbanked population will literally blow you away. Most of our constituents are going to cash their checks at check cashing places and gas stations, and are being charged 30–40% and stuff like that. So I commend your efforts, and whatever I could do to help on any level regarding you all stay in the 3rd/5th Ward, I'm open to it. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for passage of Board Bill 210 Committee Substitute.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, you can do that.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 210 Committee Substitute is out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you. Congratulations on that, too.
Thank you.
Okay, and so our last bill, we'll have Board Bill 144, Alderman Todd.
This is a committee sub also.
Yes.
Okay. Looks like a nice project. This one is nice.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Honorable Board of Alder People Committee, Neighborhood Committee. Board Bill number 144. This board bill seeks to approve Chapter 99 Redevelopment Plan and Blighting study for the 3765 Lindell Redevelopment Area. This board bill will allow up to 10-year tax abatement and at 90%. Would you like to come up and explain? Our developer will come up and explain it while he's on his way up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And if you could sign our sheet and tell us who you are and state your name for us, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, it's 2 of them. Okay, good. Okay. So we have to do the same thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Usually we just put some.
Good morning, committee. So I'm Mitch Cordy. I'm with CDG, the developer, and I'll just give you a real quick intro about us. We are a local development company. We're based in Clayton. We're actually building out an office in Midtown though right now off Locust, so that's something we're really excited about. We develop multifamily across the country, and we really focus on high quality design, high quality materials, and bringing buildings that are new and exciting, but also really blend in and give credence to the fabric of the neighborhood. And we're really looking to, this will be our first ground up development project in St. Louis, so it's something that we're really excited about. Right now, and I guess I'll just go through the whole project and talk about what we're doing. So right now the building is, it's being used by the Oddfellows. It's a fraternal lodge, so we own the building, but they use it like once a month, I think, just to meet. So other than that, the building is vacant, and it's been renovated several times and added on to several times, not for the better, unfortunately. So, excuse me, but so we are looking to bring a new ground-up development that would be 79 units.
targeted towards young professionals, professors, grad students, things like that. We're bringing a real diverse unit mix as well to provide a number of different opportunities, some different price points to really allow for opportunities for a range of demographics to have a new place to live. You have a lot of students that graduate that end up moving out, and I think we're trying to give those people a place down in Midtown where they can have somewhere to stay in the city after they graduate. So other than that, we're obviously right now the building is vacant and, there's really no activity there. And I think one thing we're looking forward to, and we've talked, with Cultural Resources and Grand Center, and something everyone's excited about is, bringing 160 new people down to that area and really adding some excitement and vibrancy, making it a more active streetscape, bringing all those people who also bring, dollars into the neighborhood. I think we've seen, something like people spend, I think the average resident spends like $12,000 a year. So on this building, you're looking at $2 million potentially that could be coming into the neighborhood. Over 350 jobs estimated during construction. And then obviously right now, the building was not on the tax roll. It was nonprofit, so that would be another benefit for the city as well.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to bring the committee substitute before us, and then you can discuss that. So
I move that we bring Board Bill 141 committee substitute before the committee.
144.
144 committee substitute.
Matt Bauer from,
can you please call the roll?
oh, sorry.
Previous roll, okay. We have to say it for the the cameras. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Matt Bauer from SLDC. I'll explain a little bit why we have a committee substitute, and also I kind of just wanted, this is a prime example of kind of what John and I do when we model projects and what we're trying to do at SLDC. So I'd like to take a couple minutes just to explain that. Originally, Collegiate Development came to us with a proposal to renovate or completely rehab the existing building into how many apartments? It was like 25? 22. Yeah. So 22 units, maintaining the existing building, and I believe it was surface parking too. Yeah. At that point, it didn't model as good as what we'd like to see and what we typically like to see. And that is actually displayed by the dotted yellow line on our financial analysis. So the blue line is what the neighborhood average project would expect to bring to the city in tax revenue. So we were just below that. But given the challenges of the development, we went ahead and approved a 5-year at 50% abatement to just get the project done. But suggested that they look at another option, and because the building was not like wasn't the best appearing building, is to consider tearing it down and building something more substantial. I think what we modeled was if they could do 50 to 60 units, it would score much better and be a better asset to the neighborhood. Through that process, they did look at their numbers and decided to come back and look for and do a ground-up new construction with demolition of the building. Because of the expense and also adding in-building parking, the amount of tax abatement increased to 10 years at 90%. And I think what this case illustrates is if you imagine that dotted yellow line as even if they asked for no abatement in the original project, it would just extend pretty much along with that blue line. But because we were able to, and I think it would have been heralded as a great success because we were able to reuse an existing building in the neighborhood without using tax abatement in the central corridor. Now we're doing 10 years at 90%, but as you can see on the graph, it's a significant benefit to the city as a whole from tax revenues, even though we've increased the amount of tax abatement. So I think as we talk about the use of incentives, I think a lot of times we focus on the incentives and not the benefit that these projects bring back to the city. And this is a good example of how we can utilize the tax abatement to generate better projects that create a better return for the city, not just focusing on not using tax abatement or using tax abatement. So again, this is a 4.5 star project, and in the first 10 years, over the existing project, it generates, over the existing building, it generates, with the incentive, it generates about $170,000 benefit for the city and $120,000 for the school district, but over a 20-year period, that increases significantly to over $600,000 benefit for the city and $1.3 million for the school district. So we're happy to see this project moving, and we're happy that we could collaborate in this way to make it a better and more impactful project on the site. So thank you.
Thank you, okay. Alderwoman Murphy?
No questions. I believe you answered everything very well. This went from a nonprofit to eventually a tax-paying thing. And I see city earnings tax and sales tax and all that, and so I'm very happy to see that happen. And that isn't that's one of those mid-century modern buildings that. It's not even a good mid-century modern. You're right. So, and the projected one looks very nice. Anyway, thank you. No questions.
Alderman Bosley?
No questions. Comment, though.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I actually have seen this building on multiple occasions, and I always drive past it and wonder, what are they doing with this building? So it's really good to be involved and see that you are have your eyes on turning into something magnificent. I think it'd be definitely a great project, and you're targeting families. I think that's extremely the youth and trying to keep them in the city. That's extremely important in trying to rebuild our population. So you definitely have your eyes set on the right target. Good job, Alderman Todd. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan?
Just a couple of quick questions here. You said that you had numerous price points that were going to go in for these 78 units. Do you have units set aside for low-income or affordable housing in this project?
No, we don't. I think one way that, there's a couple different ways to address it. I guess one, we feel like, and we're seeing this, the affordable housing issue coming up across the country in every market we're in. And, one thing we really look at is the need for additional supply as one way. A lot of people, there's a really strong demand to live in Midtown and, live in the Central Corridor. And I think that's really driven prices up because of a lack of supply. So one way is really just bringing the additional supply to the market to try and drive those prices back down and really level everything out. The other thing we're doing here is we're providing some 4-bedroom units. And what that does is, you have recent graduates that maybe they just, their parents were paying for school, but now they're out on their own. They just cannot afford to live by themselves. So these 4-bed units, it's almost sort of like a co-living scenario where you can live with some roommates still. It's much cheaper. It's a much more affordable price point, and, kind of gives you that transition to get out on your own, but you're able to still stay in the city.
And so what are your price points? Where do they,
yeah, so
where's the
for
range
example,
at?
if you looked at, a studio or 1-bedroom, you're probably talking, $1,200 per unit. But if you were living in a 4-bedroom, it would be around like $800 per bed. So, a couple $100 difference.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
You're willing to live with some roommates and really get,
And then, so how many bedrooms are there total, do you know?
162.
162. And you mentioned that you have parking on site. How many spots do you have?
We have 66 parking spaces.
66.
Yep. And they're all, it's all below the building.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Right. I definitely think it's a good project. I congratulate you, Alderman Todd. It's kind of not awkward, but when you come before us with your bills, you have one of those wards, kind of like the 26. You have the affluent side, but then you have the other little side, so you're kind of somewhere in the middle, but I'm all for growth and residency downtown, and I get the rents. I mean, people in that community, if they go to school or whatever, their parents probably can afford to pay $1,200 a month, whereas $800 a month in my ward, woo, you live in lavish, so it's just, right, so it's just, I guess, I don't know, tale of two cities, but I commend your efforts, because I think whereas we get beat up about incentives all the time, people have to look at, population, those people spending their money, people earning money, which goes to our earnings tax and stuff like that. So I think it's a good thing, and I commend you. And I know you said you were a new developer to the area. Hey, we're wide open in the 3rd, the 5th, everywhere else. We got big lots full for you to do anything you want to do. So reach out to us, and I just want to congratulate you again. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to, oh, we have someone else wants to speak on it? Okay, sure, come up, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Pate. I'm just a citizen dude. I don't have anything except some questions to ask about this project in particular. I was looking at the developer return analysis on this one, and this is the updated with the tear down and rebuild. Okay. It looks like.
So are you speaking in opposition to the bill, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have some
okay, go
questions
ahead.
about. While I definitely think that getting a building like this back in use, especially from being a nonprofit and with a questionable facade, shall we say, is going to be really good. I want to make sure that, in your ward, there is the affluent side. This happens to be on that affluent side. And I'm just wondering how much we need to incentivize 90% for 10 years for something that could really be construed as student housing. The developer's name is Collegiate Development Group, and they've done tons of student housing projects with this proximity to SLU. It's a little bit troubling that we might be subsidizing luxury student housing for a college that doesn't pay taxes already. So I understand the coming in 4-bedroom units with a co-living situation at 800 could also be really easily done as student housing rather than postgraduate housing. The developer returns, looks like it's 5.8%, or no, 5.5? Yeah, 5.5 with no incentives, and then 6.3 with incentives. We're right below the low end of the range. It seems like at, 65, 70%, and with some type of a clause in there that we could ensure that it isn't used as student housing and really provides the jobs for the community, that might be a good way to go. Those are the only questions I had. I just wanted to make sure that we're examining how we're using the incentives on the affluent side, because I work with and volunteer with the Academy Neighborhood Association and Catherine and everything, and I know they would love to see more stuff on their side.
Okay, thank you for your comments, sir. Would you like to close, Alderman?
I would just like to thank the chair, Madam Chairwoman, and the committee for hearing the proposal. And I would like to make a motion that the committee accept the proposal for the bill to pass.
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 144, committee substitute is out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you, congratulations, Alderman Todd. And this concludes our neighborhood development meeting. Now, it was a long one today, but I appreciate your time.
Oh, this park's still going.